Connect for me for a second, Dennis, empathy and this situation. Empathy is another one of those
Sure.
words that we throw around here.
Well, empathy is just that ability to understand what a person is experiencing, to see the emotions that they're having and understand what those are like for you, and then being able to communicate that you actually understand what they're experiencing, what that feels like. And when we do that, that lowers the noise, because now a person doesn't have to fight to be understood. They have a sense of, okay, they get me. And that alone will lower the noise and move the process forward.
Contrast that with a manager or a leader who focuses more on getting the job done, or getting the task finished, or the bottom line, or speaking to the stockholders today.
Sure. Well, one of the challenges there is that manager needs to know their own emotional position on that. Something drives them. There's an emotion that drives them, or several emotions, maybe several expectations and thoughts about themselves. And so if they're not aware of that, they can push their people to be just mere functionaries, just mere tools to get done what they need to get done. And we've all been there where we felt like all I am is someone to get something done for someone else. They don't really care about who I am. That's vital for managers, is to know what's driving them at an emotional level.
Take a second just to think in your own mind the contrast between two different leaders that you've had, or two different parents, or two different important people in your life, and how they handled you. In some cases, for example, you may have a mother who is a really excellent listener, who is always able to hear what you're saying and how that feels. Or you might have had a boss, a manager. You might have had a professor who was really good. When you walked into their office, you walked into their room, they immediately looked you in the eye, and they listened long enough to make sure they understood what you said. And they didn't offer so much advice, but more they said, this is really what it seems like is going on with you. How do you think you could move forward here? And they walk with you in the process, versus a father figure or a boss or a manager who's just interested in, let's just get this done. My dad was kind of like that. He was a great guy. Think of Clint Eastwood in Torino, Gran Torino. That was kind of my dad. Maybe not quite that strong, but he had that genre. And how many times would he usher me out into the yard, for some yard task that needed to be done. And it was all about getting the task done. I remember one time we were digging a hole and we were trying to get a bush, and I was probably 8 or 10 years old. And he was digging away and I was standing in the hole, and we were trying to put this bush in, and I hear this crack, and he had been working so hard to get this, he'd totally forgotten that I was there. And the handle on that shovel broke in half, and it snapped back and hit me in the forehead, and I went flying across the ground. I still remember that moment. It wasn't so much the pain, because it did hurt and it didn't feel good physically. But what my dad said in that moment, and he was a great guy, but he was so focused on the task that he said, you look fine. Get back over here. Let's get this bush in.
That's the rub the dirt on it phrase. And the dilemma with that is if you don't move in a direction of empathy, you will end up having to help that person more. Because what empathy does, it actually empowers a person to look at their own situation, having known that they're understood, and start to move to their own solution. For instance, I think of a little child who falls and skins his knee. When he gets up, that's traumatic for a little child. It's bleeding, it's awful. And he will start to cry. And if we say it's nothing, we say that's okay, rub dirt on it. Well, what will happen there is that child will start to protest more, because that child's not being understood. But if we move in a direction of the child, well, wow, that's kind of scary. That's kind of scary to watch that blood come out of you. And, but you were a pretty brave little boy when you did that. That child will actually start to take care of themselves. And that's what empathy does, even with our employees. When we're empathetic with them, you watch, they will start to take care of their own emotions well, and they will start to make better decisions.
So empathy is one of those concepts that most leaders have heard about, and many of you practice. I'm guessing pretty well. It's a tool, a powerful tool for lowering emotional noise. Because in emotional noise, if you remember that when someone is emoting, when someone is not able to do something, they're either having the fight, which is they're getting back in your face, or they're running away, they're avoiding their job, they're not coming to work, they're sick all the time, or in the midst of this COVID, they're using whatever excuse they can to avoid, the situation that makes them uncomfortable, the flight, or the freeze, where they just can't even answer a question. They used to be very productive and now they can't really even make sales calls anymore. You have one of these three emotional responses to a situation. You have to come back and remember that underneath that is something probably fairly simple. There was an expectation or a need or a perception that they have that hasn't been met. So for example, if you have an employee that's freezing, they used to be excellent at making sales calls. They were bringing in all kinds of new contracts. And now after they've come back and they've been at home for 2 or 3 months and they've had their family they've had to deal with and other traumas, maybe even someone in their family or someone they know died of the COVID infection. And now they're back at their desk. And you as the leader want to create an atmosphere for them to be able to be productive again. What does that look like? How do you move them where they need to go?
Well, I think one of the things that helps is, as the leader, to establish that you have a direction. And like in a family, when the boss or the owner says, I know where we need to go, that creates safety. And combine that with empathy, and you allow space for someone to deal with their struggles, but now not have to worry about, oh, this is another place of danger or difficulty.
And I think we can also be specific with the questions we ask. You were expecting something. You can either guess that as a leader, or you can ask them, what were you expecting the situation here to feel like or be like when you got back here? Do all the lines on the floor that you have to use to space out? Do all of the containers of hand sanitizer around? Do all the masks everyone is wearing? Does that create an atmosphere? Were you expecting to feel something differently than you are in this situation right now? You can ask a specific question, or you can say, it seems like maybe there's something you need here. Is there something we could be doing or not doing that would make you feel more safe, or would make you able to understand what's happening here better? Is there some level of communication that you need? Often it's a communication issue. When you talk about need, it's simply they're not clear. They're not clear on their expectations. They're not clear on what you're expecting them to do or what they might need to get that done. And that quickly turns into a perception. If you are doing it, it turns into a perception that, yeah, these guys figured this out. They've created a safe workplace. I'm comfortable to come back here. I feel like I can still work. It's not perfect, but we can get this done. Or they could come back and perceive, my goodness, they have no idea what they're doing here. They don't care at all about my safety or my condition or my background. They're just here for the dime.
Sure. One of the most powerful questions you can ask in that situation is, what do you need from me right now? And it's not yesterday or moving forward. It's like, in this moment, what do you need right now? And you may get a varied response. It's like, I just needed you to know. Or, you know what, I could use an afternoon off. Or I just need to go walk around the block. Or, I'm wondering, any way we can revisit my performance review and change my salary. But what do you need from me right now is a really vital question in that moment.
One of the reasons why lowering emotional noise is an important first step, and critical, really, first step in this process, is because what you're moving toward as we come back out of this COVID crisis or any other, challenging situation you're in as a leader in your company, we want you to be resilient and confident. Not arrogant, not pretending that you know what you don't know, but we do want you to have a confidence, and we want you to have a resiliency that allows you to lead in a way that people sense that you're paying attention, that even though you may not have all the answers, that you were working hard on their behalf. I think one of the most critical things in this process of lowering emotional noise is it clears the space so that people can recognize what your intentions actually are. They can see what your perceptions are. They can see what you actually think.
Lowering noise helps us move towards trust, helps us move toward that sense for a worker that, yeah, they do have my back, that they are concerned about me and my work here.